Welcome to the Business Shop Podcast, where our guests speak on meeting the challenges of entrepreneurship, as well as offer tips and advice on business, marketing, technology, and more. Whether you are a newbie or a seasoned professional, this episode is for you. I am your host, Audrey Wiggins. Let's chop it up. Well, hello, Chop Squad. Audrey here, your host. Today, we'll be chopping it up with John Morley. He's a serial entrepreneur, engineer. He's a marketing specialist, a national talk show host, keynote speaker, and motivational speaker. He does professional training and coaching from Franklin Lakes, New Jersey. Hello, John.
How are you, Audrey? Pleasure to be here this morning.
Great. I'm glad you're here. Let's dive a little bit more into your bio. Let folks know who they're listening to today. All right. So he's also a podcast host, Drive Time radio personality, and he's the CEO and founder of the JMOR Connection. That's JMOR Connection Incorporated. It's now a 30-plus-year-old company, again, in Franklin Lakes, New Jersey. When he was in college, which was not too long ago, he realized that many were frustrated with technology and by also giving bad advice. So no matter whether you have never touched technology or use it daily with his team, and he will help us to make it easy, and that's a trademark for him. During 7th grade, he started one of New Jersey's largest BBS Systems to build community before there was an internet, with fancy formatted pages, graphics, and user entry forms. I want to hear more about that, John. He is also the president of the Franklin Lakes Chamber of Commerce, and helps to make our community better one day at a time. John, welcome again to the Business Shop. Finally, awesome to get in touch with you. I've been listening to some of your interviews on different shows and yours, so very excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much again. It's a very good privilege and pleasure and honor to be with you today, Audrey.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So, John, let's fill in some more of your background. You're an engineer. I mean, you have your hands in a lot of stuff. I'm a pseudo engineer because I work in an engineering college. Okay. Shout out to the Washington College of Engineering at Cleveland State University. Okay. I got all that in.
Very nice. Cool. Very cool.
I do the marketing communications here. So it's exciting to be around your people.
Well, we're all engineers at heart. I think that's the thing.
Yeah, we're makers.
Sometimes other engineers, I call it, make it non-inclusive. What I do is a little different. I try to make it inclusive. And I always say I never discriminate race, religion, orientation, color, etc., creed. But I also try to do that when it comes to engineering, and to try to not leave anybody out. I call it those reindeer games. I mean, sometimes we'll have discussions that just people can't sit in. But for the bulk of the time, I try to make people feel welcome so they actually can comment or participate.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. So now tell us about on the projects that you're working on now.
So I am the CEO and founder of JMOR Connection, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. And the one thing we didn't share, which I'll share with you, is when I was probably a junior, that was when the company started. But I had hired a marketing and advertising company. Now, I knew nothing about marketing, nothing about advertising.
Okay.
And all my friends told me, you're never going to market. You're never going to advertise. And I like to write, but I never really explored that passion. I'm also now a member of the United States Press for 6 years. I love to write articles. In fact, every 2 weeks, I write 2 articles. Mm-hmm. So the latest 2 that I wrote, one was about how to build an A-team. Okay. And the other one was very interesting, was how does the air conditioner work?
Oh, yeah. I've got to go back and catch that one. I've been sharing.
I will share 2, but I won't give them all out of the bag. I'll tell you, one of them are working is, where did the ice maker come from? And how is it that people see the glass half full or half empty? So I'm talking about that. So the reason I'm jumping a little more is because I'm on vacation next week. And so I try to get all my articles done usually by the Sunday of this week, because this whole week I'm going to be away. So I'm already starting to write, so I'm a little ahead. But what happened was when I was in college, I had already hired this company that was charging my father and me money before we even had a company. Mm-hmm. And so I figured, they're going to make us millions. They're going to be great. And 14 years back, I when this whole saga, basically had gone through, it's like I decided that I had enough. They were making mistakes. I mean, no one's perfect.
Yeah.
They were doing like things that a marketing advertising company should be doing right. Like the number one thing they did wrong was they didn't print themselves. They sent it out.
Okay.
They constantly want to charge me extra fees because they said that I missed the deadline, but I didn't miss any deadline. It said if I want to change the deadline, their deadline, let's say, was today, I found out, well, my deadline had to be the day before because it was a $500 fee because they had to change their deadline. So it was a lot of games.
Yeah,
they made mistakes. They had grammatical errors, so yada, 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 yada. Yeah. And so I said, how do I divorce myself from these people? This is like horrendous. I don't know marketing. I don't know advertising. Everybody keeps saying that I'm never going to learn this. So first thing I realized, to kind of go flashback to college, I was on the board, and I was like one of the guys that was basically responsible for the money. So I would sign the checks. And so one weekend, we were a suitcase school, and one weekend I stayed there, and they asked me to basically dispense 2 checks. They said, don't worry about it. It's already covered. You don't have to sign it. You just have to give it out to the guy. I said, okay. I said, how much are the checks? Oh, don't worry about it. We're all good. So the afternoon came, I got the 2 checks. I figured, I don't know, what we're going to pay him, a couple $1,000, $5,000. I look at the check and I see the list and I sign. I'm like, $40,000. And I said, is there a mistake? And I'm looking, I'm like, there's 2 checks in here. Yeah, that's right, John. 20,000 and 20,000. So I said, who approved this? Oh, the student dean's office approved it. They approved this, really? Yeah, it's all good. Okay, as long as it's not my name. So I went out there, and before I went there, I said, why is this guy getting $40,000? Because I thought that was a lot of money because it was coming from all of our students' fees. That's where all this stuff comes. About 20% of your student tuition goes to cover all kinds of services. And so, and a lot of them are like entertainment services and things like that. So what happened was I did some research on him. Then I went to the event, and I won't say his name, but he was a doctor of stage hypnotherapy, and stage hypnotist, what they call. So I said to the gentleman, I said, it's a pleasure to meet you, doctor. And I said, I've done my homework on you. I said, I know what you do. I said, let me be very clear to you. Here's the first check. This check that I'm going to give you right now will bounce so high if I catch you embarrassing me or any one of the staff in the front row. Am I clear? And if that doesn't bother you, forget getting the second check because you're not even going to see it. Oh, and if money doesn't bother you, because I know you have plenty of money, no problem. I know you're going to Harvard, you're going to Yale, you're going to Marist, you're going to all these colleges. I think it's like 46. They're going to start calling a few days before to cancel because we're all part of the student connection.
Yep.
Well, he just like, his face went white. Here's your first check. We'll have a good show. And I sat back in my chair. And he did exactly what I thought he was going to do. But to other people in the audience, he squeezed a lemon. They ran on stage, embarrassed themselves. At the end of the show, I walked up. I said, doctor, I said, that was a very interesting and intriguing show. Here's your second check. I'm going to recommend to our administration that we actually put some more money in the budget for next quarter.
Okay.
And he was interested in that. And so when I left, I realized that our mind is keeping us from things. Okay. Now, this is something that I had already realized before I graduated. Meanwhile, I already hired this marketing company the year before. And so I decided that I was going to get involved. So when I graduated, I got certified in neurolinguistic programming, clinical hypnosis. And I I took the Silva method to learn that our brain does more than we think it does, but we just don't know how to use it. Nobody gave us an owner's manual.
Right.
So I decided to test this. After I had gotten my other certifications, I went to get my bachelor's in education. After all that was done, I said, I want to manifest a new car. Now, I've done that before. That wasn't hard, but I want to manifest a certain luxury car. So my first car was a Chevy S10 Blazer. It was a great car, basically like a Bronco type vehicle. My parents had got it for me, and I got it when I got my permit. So it was really interesting. And then after that, they had helped me. I got a Cherokee Limited, second one, a third one. And then they kept catching on fire.
Oh,
like
wow.
Electrical problems. So then I got a QX4. That was good. And then I decided I want to get something else. Well, first thing I did when I got home from college, from that program, was I went to the dealership, couldn't afford the car, the SUV at the time. And I said, I want to drive this. Well, the sales rep's like, he knew I didn't have any money, and he's not wasting his time with me. So I went right to the manager and I said, look, I said, I'm just researching today. I said, but I would really like to do a test drive on this vehicle. Yeah, no problem. By the way, could I use the nav? Yeah, we could do all that. So this sales rep, who was only a few years older than me, was not interested in working with me. And so I test drove the car. I smelled it. I felt it. I heard it. I made it part of me. I made it my screensaver. I took a proverbial test drive every day in my chair. Then I got a little more comfortable and I drove around my neighborhood. And there was never any traffic when I went. And so and 6 months later, that car showed up in my driveway. So the reason I'm telling you this story is,
yes,
I realized that my mind was setting my future, whether I liked it or I didn't. And programs were going into my head that I didn't want there. The one was, you're never going to make any money. You're not good at marketing. You don't know how to advertise. You're never going to do this. You're never going to be able to brand. You're always going to have to hire someone. Right. So I stopped listening to those voices.
Yes.
And I said, what's the first thing this company is doing wrong? This large multi-million-dollar company. By the way, I'm not going to mention it, but they're still in business, unfortunately. They're on Wall Street. And I said, I know what they're doing. They're doing something very primitive wrong. They're not doing the work themselves in-house. And they're not printing. I said, the first thing I want to do, if I'm going to become a marketing and advertising company, is learn what the heck all this means. And then I'm going to become a mom and pop print shop.
Okay.
And so I invested with different things I did, and bought my first press, which at the time was about 150 grand. Had no knowledge of this other than the technical knowledge. And so I had gotten 40 hours of training on the machine, learning about the fiery EFI, which is electronics for imaging, which is basically a computer that takes your image, rasters it, sends it off to the printer in a very high format capacity. So it can give you the best color. It matches everything up. So first 2 years, we failed miserably. But before that happened, I walked right into the office in the morning, knocked on the door. I said, hey, guys, just want to say thank you. We had a great run, and we're done. And I tried to explain to them how they were fired. They came back to say, we worked all night on a multi-million-dollar campaign that's going to put JMOR over the stars. Would you like to hear about it? No.
Oh, wow.
No. I said, you should have came up with that idea years ago. How many years have you been working for me? Well, John, it's a competitive industry. I said, yeah, you really don't know what you're doing. And then when they heard that I was going over to their company, oh, you don't want to go to this company, you don't want to go to that company, they're terrible. I said, well, we're going to a new company. And they're like, oh, well, who? And I told them where, like, they don't know any companies over there do that. I said, well, they're brand new. Then they probed a little more and they found out I owned the company, and they're like, oh, dude, bro, you don't know marketing. You don't know advertising. You don't want to swim with the sharks. We like you. And this is why we're trying to tell you is we want to save you because you just don't know how to swim with them. See, we've been doing this for years. Ripping me off. Well, we're going to work on a discount plan to give you money back for what we've charged you. And we're going to give you a discount going forward. How does 20% sound?
Oh my gosh.
I'll tell you what, I'm probably going to get fired for this, but we're going to give you 40% of all the bills you already paid back in credit, and we're going to charge you 40% less going forward. I said, I'm not interested. How about we do breakfast? No, how about we say goodbye?
Yeah. Too much, too little, too late.
Exactly. So the first customer became JMOR. And I realized, Audrey, and you probably know this, a lot of tech companies don't know how to market. They don't know how to advertise. They put them in the same genre. And I was no different, but I knew my business.
You're right.
I knew what the business needed. Most marketing companies, they try to tell you what you need, but they don't even know who we service or what we do. Oh, you sell computers? Well, we do more than that. Like we integrate. Oh, okay, but you're a computer company. Well, no, there's more to it than that. Yeah, but you're under computers. So coming up with our first brochure was the first highlight. I think it was our first, no, it was actually our first flyer. And it was very rewarding having that brochure created. And I still remember to this day, it was at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning that I sent that job through to the print shop in the morning from home. And I came in the next morning and that job was just waiting for me.
Wow.
And then I started handing it out. And I said, oh, by the way, we're a tech company, but we also printed and designed this. Mm-hmm. You did? You guys do printing? Well, we're starting a printing market. Really? Where did you print this? In-house? You have equipment that does this? I said, yes. So now we become a full print production, graphic, media, and digital design center. I'm very passionate about content that the listeners and viewers didn't know. And so I'm all about giving value back. I believe, Audrey, it's about education. There was a very wise gentleman. His name was Percy Spencer, very nice gentleman. Didn't know him, but I've read a lot about him. The microwave was an accident. He came to work one day. He worked for Raytheon Corporation, who made magnetrons for the police station and the radar detectors when they weren't illegal back then. And he wanted to make them as best as he could. And so one day he had a candy bar in his pocket. He noticed that candy bar melted. He then wondered what would happen if I put an egg in front of the beam. It shattered, popped. What would happen if I put popcorn in front of it? And he tested other foods. He says, I wonder what would happen if I built a box and I put the gun inside it. 150 patents later, we had the microwave. In fact, the first microwave back then was $5,000, which would be about $65,000 today. It was about the size of a dishwasher. That's and amazing. Most people didn't want it, not because it was just microwave, but because if you didn't have a constant water supply hooked up to it properly, it would overheat and catch on fire. Okay. So these are trivial type things, but I enjoy exploring things. Like the past week, I wrote a thing about the air conditioner. And you might say, gee, what's so interesting about the air conditioner? Well, I always knew how the air conditioning worked, but I wanted to simplify it in a way. And what I was able to do is explain to people that an air conditioner is very simple. All it does is it takes this refrigerant called Freon or RF or whatever we're using, depending on how newer ones now. And when your thermostat basically is set to a temperature, it causes a circuit to close on the main motherboard of the heating air conditioning system or just your air conditioning system. And it causes basically the condenser motor to run inside and your outside compressor to start. And it starts to pump refrigerant through the home, through the house, and back around. And what happens is that is a low pressure, low temperature vapor. After that pumps around, it gets full, it goes to the compressor, comes out of the compressor, and it becomes a high pressure, high temperature vapor. We're not done yet. It then comes out of there, and it goes all the way around those coils in your air conditioner unit, the outside unit there. And it turns from that to a medium pressure, medium temperature liquid. That liquid, then it gets pumped back into the house, and then it stops at a valve. There is a sensor from that valve on the pipe to sense the temperature. And that valve automatically opens just enough to let enough refrigerant through. Once it gets let through, it starts to go through your A-frame inside, and the water becomes cold. The hot air comes from the intern, comes over that, returns back, cools it, it boils, condensation comes out, process goes back, and it starts all over again.
That's interesting.
So I try to inspire people with, they're trivial, but I think there's so much stuff to learn about. I mean,
because we just take it for granted. All we do is go flip the light switch. What's going on behind that in the wall, and where is it connected to? And what excites me, let's take it, we're talking about engineering.
Yes.
That in our building, we have a new wing that we built a few years ago, pre-COVID. And the building is exposed, so to speak. So all the ceiling is open. So you can see I'm like, well, where are all these wires going to? And you look at, you have digital TV monitors. Let's use that for an example on the wall. Okay. So we know it's plugged up right here. okay, so how do we get the network in there? And, and then, okay, so where is this coming through? And then I'm controlling it from my desk, and, where's the HDMI cable, and where's it, so it's like all of the stuff is wired. And
then what they've done now is they've made something called modular structures. Now, it's not new, but they've kind of done this a lot, especially universities. Mm-hmm. They have gotten rid of the ceiling or kind of dropped it because they've learned that, heat and we lose a lot of heat in there. And we also make it harder to cool in the summertime. So what happens is they basically put these panels in. And also, similar to what under computer floors, they can run the wires underneath, and then your jacks are coming out of the floors, or there's utility poles, etc. Mm-hmm. So engineering comes down to a couple of things. Of course, you have the electrical and data, which is where I am. There's the mechanical world. So you have to have a little understanding, but I'm not a mechanical engineer. Then you have an environmental engineer. So you have to understand all these pieces. And I think what gets...
Don't leave out our chemicals.
Yes, we got chemical engineering too. Exactly. My mom was actually a chemical engineer before she had me. So, okay. And I do like to dabble in chemical. I also do STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math classes. Mm-hmm. And I blow up a lot of different things. But my point is that legally in front of students. So like we blow up rockets and Alka-Seltzer and baking soda, all kinds of things. Mm-hmm. So what happens is, and we also like to take soda bottles and we like to cause chain reactions with Mentos.
See, this just too much play.
But I got to say something, Audrey.
Yes.
You see, the reason why most people don't become engineers, or the reason why people, I haven't told you this, but I don't work in life. See, people pay me, but I don't work. I just creatively play. I had another interview about a week or two ago, and the lady said to me, well, how does that work? I said, it's real simple. I just play. I just ask myself questions like, what will this be like when? What will it look like? What will it feel like? So I try to involve my sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell. And see, there was an experiment many years ago. You probably remember the basketball players. They had 3 basketball player groups. One basketball player group practiced every day after school, religiously. The second group, they went to silent study and they practiced in their mind. Third group just blew it off and did nothing. So out of that group, well, obviously the third group was probably worse, no better. The first and second group actually did quite well. And there was a toss-up between who did better because the second group might have done a little better in their mind. See, when you use your mind, you fire the same neurons and dendrites in your body. So those people were still just as tired as the people that did the physical exercise a lot of times. Mm-hmm. Now, that's pretty wild. So when we creatively play, whether it's a puzzle, if people say, well, you have lots of problems. I said, I don't have any problems. I have challenges and puzzles I love to solve. Mm-hmm. And this is why I tell people, if you can't solve something now, put it down, go away from it, come back to it.
That's true. That's paramount right there. And I've proven that to myself time and time again. It's like, what am I doing? Shut it down and you come back, the next day or later, like you said.
It happens with writing too. Maybe I get stuck on something. I'm like, let me put it down. Let me come back. Because, we always need to go through things a few iterations. Yep. And I got to tell you, you being on the tech side, you'd appreciate this. So when I was going for my degree, we had a professor, I won't mention his name. He's retired many years. And he, I think, was born to ruin my social life. I really think that's why he was born. Because at college, we said, when you're in science, you're in engineering, you don't have a social life. Not if you have these professors. But you had to have one of them or you didn't get your degree because they all were kind of part of that. So it kind of didn't seem fair because I tried to avoid them until I got to my junior and I'm like, I guess this is where my social life drops.
Right.
So he assigned a project, very simple project. He wanted us to write a project that would actually take people's bowling scores, calculate them, and give an average.
Okay.
Pretty easy to do. Now, if we were just doing this with a program and we were writing it to the disk, no problem. Very easy. Or we're just storing it in memory, no problem. But what got complicated is you didn't just have 5 or 6. He wanted us to tabulate the entire team.
Oh.
So now I've got to enter Audrey. And I got to keep entering your scores. Am I done with Audrey? Yes. Yes. Are you done? Yes. Enter the next player's number, John. Keep entering scores. When it's blank, great. We got that. So you got to keep doing that. So there's a little more than just a record. And without to bore people about all the different data structures. So in order to do this, you had to use something called a linked list. And in English, a linked list is nothing more than dynamic memory. Static memory is memory that is basically set up at the time of the program, but it doesn't change. Mm-hmm. Dynamic memory is something that you allocate on the fly at runtime. So static memory, you can initialize, you can change it, but you can only do it at configuration time, at the compile time. Dynamic actually allocates those things while the program is running, which would make sense because how do we know how many people are on the team? So how can I allocate 100 to it? Why would I want to waste those resources? And I want to give them back. Any good program today uses dynamic memory or linked lists. So it sounded very easy. Well, that week I figured I'll be done by Friday. This is a simple project. I've done this before, and I just got to make it a little bit harder because I got to do the team. I've done a player before. It can't be much harder. We're going to use this linked list. I said it should be pretty easy. Had all the constructs, how to create the list, how to traverse the list. It seemed pretty straightforward, and I understood how to use linked lists. Okay. Saturday night comes. I'm still not done. You want to go out, John? I'm like, I can't. I got to work on the stupid project.
There goes the social life.
There goes my social life. So John, they're like, you're bumming us out. I said, thank Dr. Such and such. He said, oh, you're with him? I said, all right, say no more. We don't hold it against you. I said, I want to do well in his class. He says, oh, he's like, I feel for you. I was like, all right. So Sunday came and it was time for church. So I said, I'm leaving. I'm going to church. And then I'm coming back. That's the only break I'm taking. And I'm going to get my food breaks. That's all I did was take my food break and come back. Oh, John, you want to go? No, I just came for a burger and I'm going back to my dorm to finish this up. We're going back to the Sun Lab, we called it.
Okay.
So I decided to get a little more creative because I knew I was going to need more hours and I didn't want to stay in a lab all night long. So I bought my own compiler at the time. At the time, it was called Borland. Now, that was another thing he didn't quite like. Whenever I turned a project in with Borland, even though it was commercial grade, I lost a letter grade because he didn't want me to be doing that. That was making my life easier by having to do it in my dorm. So the Sunday night came. And again, I spent all this week, this whole hours, and I was like, this is just crazy. I got to hand this project in tomorrow at 8:00. I'm like, what am I going to do? And I said, I got to go away. So I went away for a few minutes. I came back for a walk, came back, and I said, oh, I know what I'm doing wrong. When linked lists are created, I always started at the beginning, but there's a bug in all compilers. Whenever you create a linked list, the linked list doesn't always start off with null or 0. So one of the things I was doing was reading it before I initialized it. And it crashed the program every time. So now whenever you create a linked list, the first thing you have to remember, you got to initialize the stupid thing. And so that's a lesson I will never, ever forget. A very painful lesson.
Yeah. So how can we turn this technology for those of us who are not techie and utilize that to actually grow or enhance our businesses? I know right now, the Chat GPT is all the rage and AI is not really new, but or what other programs or things that you recommend?
So as far as technology right now, the most important thing is to be protected. That's the first thing. I always say if you're not properly protected, it's not a question of if you'll be hacked, it's when. Okay. So you want to protect yourself amongst a lot of things, right? We all know about antivirus. I mean, that's nothing new to anybody. We all know about that. Many of us know about malware and stuff like that, but a lot of people don't know about things like sandboxing, web filtering, vulnerability scanning, ransomware. So let's break that down. So malware, we kind of know what malware is. I won't get into that. Sandboxing is pretty cool. So what sandboxing does is you have this program, okay, or I'll call it this entity, and we're not sure about it. So we're going to go throw it into a virtual sandbox, which is an environment that's isolated. It can't really harm or hurt anything. And we're going to monitor it. And we're going to see how it operates. And based on that, we're going to report our findings back to the main control system. If we see that it behaves badly, well, we're probably going to keep it in quarantine and get rid of it. If it behaves better or it doesn't change or it helps things, we might decide to release it and see that it is actually benign and not cancerous or anything like that. Okay. And so sandboxing is something, believe it or not, most systems do not have. To date, just to give you an example how much we use sandboxing, on my computer at home here, I've submitted 9,181 files for submission. There are 0-day attacks, 9,053 were cleaned, and there's 128 that are still pending analysis.
Wow.
So that means I trust nothing. Web filtering. So what is web filtering? Well, before we used to have the ability to just, block people based on, whether it's adult content or whether it's things with guns or adult violence or things like that, or even certain cults or whatever. Maybe it's shopping sites or gambling. So now we have more of a granular control that we can get even to things like Boolean keywords, and we can restrict like gambling sites allowed, but not sites that use money. Different types of gambling, or gambling and not crypto. So we can do things like that and build that into powerful stuff. We rate sites now in the following manners. And you and I having a conversation before we started. There is one called new. And when something's new, it's unrated. So when something's unrated in our system, we don't trust it. Right. Because we don't think it's good. There is general interest business, general interest personal, security risk that's known to be a risk in other places, bandwidth consuming, adult or mature types content, and potentially liable. Potentially liable are those sites you go to download all that free stuff. Nothing's free. And you download things and you find that there's all kinds of stuff on your site. So I tell people you never should go to a website and enter PI, which is personal information, or PHI, personal health information, unless that site is secure or trusted. So the way we make sure a site is secure is pretty simple. We look for the S if it appears. We look for a solid lock or a key, and then we can go a step further, click on that, and we can even tell what kind of certificates. There are certificates out there that are for $25, and they're more advanced certificates. So what's the difference? More money? Yes. The big difference is a certificate that doesn't verify the ownership of the site, but just verifies the domain has control, might be good for maybe a couple $100 e-commerce site, but it would not be where I want to go purchase a $5,000 or $10,000 item because the insurance is not as high. Yeah. And so let's say we have a site that's doing, hypothetically, selling high ticket sales at $5,000 to $6,000. That's not for a $25 SSL certificate, secure socket layer. We would want to go to something higher called an EV, extended validation SSL. Now, in order to get an EV today is not easy if you've never had one. Your business has to be in good standing. They will validate your business to make sure that not only do you own the domain like you do on the $25 one, but they're going to validate that your records match with the government. Wow. They're going to make sure you, I'm sorry?
I like that. Yeah.
So those certificates start around $250 and up. Okay. But the nice thing about that is now when I go to that site and I know that this was verified, blah, 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 and there's only a couple entities because they're all being sold by companies. So there's not a lot. And so when they go through the process, you have to verify an email, number one. If it's the first time, they're typically going to call the person who is getting the certificate to validate information like, Audrey, okay, so I have a Mark Higgins that works for you or is validated as your boss. Can I talk to him? Talk to him. Yes. Does Audrey work for you? Yes. And when did she start working there? Okay, great. And you approve this order that was put through today? I do. Great. Thank you so much. We're all completed with the validation. That needs to be done every 2 years.
Okay.
So that's something a lot of people don't do. Now, there's another thing. So I talked about sandboxing. I talked about web filtering. There's something called vulnerability scanning. Now, this is pretty cool. Vulnerability scanning happens because of what I called something called a zero-day attack. A zero-day attack basically means that there was an exploit in the code. And it happens because there was let's say a backdoor left in or something that shouldn't be there from the software developer that got put there accidentally. And this company's exploited. So if you have a zero-day attack, as soon as the vendors find out about it, they kill it. So you have very little time to attack on it. A vulnerability scan will pick that up in 4 different areas: low, medium, high, or critical. For example, a lot of people were using Java, you remember years ago.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to use Java anymore unless you're using the highest version. It's paid, but we don't use Java. Java had a lot of exploits in it. There were things called SSL attacks, where man-in-the-middle people could pretend to be your server, and then before you know it, they were getting into your database and all kinds of things. So what I tell people is you can't trust anything. So how do you not trust anything? That becomes very hard if you can't trust anything. So start with zero trust and build from there. If you're logging into a bank site, assume that you have no trust. So you put a password in, and then it's going to send a 2-factor, usually either an SMS or using Microsoft Authenticator. Every 60 seconds, a code's going to change. You're going to need to put that in there, and then you'll be able to get in. There's no way you can get into that site without the passcode and the 2-factor.
Okay.
So that's where we're going right now. We're seeing in the financial industry that they're trying to bring, because we only have a 4-digit code on a bank account right now. That's not very much.
Yeah.
Right? If you take that code, which the way we figure out, basically the way we figure out permutations is pretty easy. If you do a 4 by 4, which is how you basically do it. You take 4 times 4 times 4 times 4, and you come up with a number. So you might say, gee, well, where does that number come from? Well, the number comes from this. The permutations come from basically the number of possible positions that we can have. So if you take 64 times 4, you're only going to get 250. That's not a lot of combinations,
right,
or permutations. So you can see the 4 is not a very, very good way. And so they're trying to put things in like biometrics, okay? But people ask me, John, is it safe to use biometrics? So they really don't have my fingerprint. They really don't have my eye scan. They have parts of it, but not the full thing. The problem is that a lot of actors are starting to grab this data from your smartphone. And then if other, let's say, entities are just needing that same bit of information, now your information can be validated with just that partial information. So I really don't trust anything but 2-factor, because you can't get around 2-factor.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
And so more people are starting to realize that, I have an antivirus program. It's $49. I'm just giving you, that's not my program, but this is what they'll say. The one we typically get out to people is like $129 a year, but it's enterprise grade. So you ask how many people are sandboxing. They're like, sandbox? I don't have a sandbox. I sandboxed when I was a kid. So they don't understand the concept. And so the world keeps changing, and we have a new world that changed now is we don't even have VPNs are starting to go away now. VPNs were great. They took a lot of time. Now we have something called zero trust.
Okay.
Zero trust means that everything on your network has zero trust until you assign it trust. So it's changing, but the big problem, Audrey, with ChatGPT, as you mentioned, I'm not a lover of that.
Okay.
Because ChatGPT can dynamically at runtime come up with new code, new input that could be used, including malicious viruses. So ChatGPT works on the data that you feed it.
Right.
And if you feed it data and it learns certain information, you have to realize that it can get exploited. This is why we had the problem many years ago with IV machines that got hacked, because when they built them, they didn't have a very good PIN code, and they were able to be exploited, and they were able to control medications, stop them, turn them on, turn them off, etc., all because of Internet of Things. See, that whole market boomed, but they didn't bother to put the security in that market.
Yeah.
The same thing is happening with Chat GPT. We are rushing because of convenience, but when we rush, we can either have two things. We can either have convenience or we can have security. I'd rather have inconvenience and more security.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. Now, John, you have like filled my head is like, woo. But good stuff though, for sure. But I want to know, how can we, get closer to you and really get some more information, or even services as far as that goes?
Sure, absolutely. So really easy way to reach out to me. I have a link tree.
Okay.
I do a lot of things. I have 5 companies, but you can reach out to me by going to Believe, BELIEVE, just like on my hat, achieve.com. So believemeachieve.com. People say to me, John, why did you pick that? Well, I'm also a professional keynote. I spoke for Harvard. I spoke for Yale. And so we actually, before we can do anything, we have to believe in ourselves before we can achieve. Mm-hmm. And if we never believe, we'll never do anything. So believemeachieve.com is where I have all kinds of content, from my daily videos, from my other companies, from tech videos. And there's a lot of free content on there that you could spend, I'm going to tell you, months, days, maybe years on there. And now with my new podcast that's went into its second year, we're at almost 568 episodes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Awesome. Inspirations for Your Life has 2 flavors. One is an online version, which is a podcast. We do a stream every day whenever we do it, because there's no set time. And then 24 hours later, it becomes a podcast going out to 25 different aggregates, Spotify, etc. I also have a national tech show that launches every Friday at 5:30, JMOR Tech Talk. And then just this February, I launched IFYL Drive Time. So it's like IFYL podcast, but it's very different. IFYL Drive Time is a very succinct show. It's exactly 58 minutes. It's currently on regional radio, goes out to 15,000 people in New York and New Jersey. And we're working right now to get that out to about 41 million people. So slowly to expand it to different states around the globe, because I want to be heard everywhere around the world. That's right.
It's got to be the goal. Yeah. Well, John, this has been amazing. Thank you again. I can't wait to, to get even closer and follow you, your shows and things that you're doing, and get some more people on board as well.
Well, Audrey, thank you so much. It was truly a privilege, like I said, a pleasure and honor to meet you here in virtual person, I call it, world, and to have this great conversation, and to have an amazing dialogue, and to also share the information. People say to me, John, why do you do what you do? And I'll leave you with this. I live, Audrey, for 2 reasons in life. Yeah. 2 reasons are this. 1, to become a better version of myself. 2, to help others become a better version of myself. People say, John, is that selfish? I said, no, because I can't help you become better if I don't help myself become better first.
Thank you for listening to The Business Shop. We hope that you were able to glean valuable information from our guest, and that you will download and share this podcast. Your rating and review is much appreciated. To go deeper with our guests, please visit their website and social channels. To learn more about us, please visit businessshop.info or altogether.biz, where we will help you expand your brand.